Emma had never known a silence so loud. The elevator doors closed with a soft chime, sealing her inside a glass and steel capsule that reflected her nervous expression back at her. Her eyes darted to the floor indicator above. 1, 2, 3. Each number a heartbeat, a countdown, a prayer. She clutched her thin portfolio to her chest like armor. It held copies of her resume, a few recommendation letters, and a dog-eared business card from a career fair she'd attended 6 months ago. Useless paper, really. What mattered now was what she could say, and how she wouldn't mess it up. Please don't let me mess it up, she thought. The elevator glided upward, too smooth to feel real. Her reflection wavered faintly in the polished metal. Chestnut brown hair pulled into a neat bun, soft makeup hiding 3 nights of poor sleep, a navy blazer borrowed from a friend one size too big. Her eyes looked bright, but hollow, like someone running on fumes. 25th floor. A man in a charcoal suit stepped in. Briefcase, AirPods. Didn't even glance her way. 26th. She tried to take a deep breath, but it caught in her throat. What am I even doing here? The voice inside her wasn't kind. It never was on days like this. You're a barista with a communications degree, and student debt so deep you could mine it. You don't belong on the 28th floor of a Manhattan skyscraper. Her fingers trembled slightly. 27th. Everyone always said it would get better, that opportunities would come. But since college, Emma's life had been a string of near misses and thank you for applying emails. Her bank account held $46.17. Her landlord had stopped being polite. Her phone bill was 3 days overdue. Today wasn't just an interview. It was oxygen. Ding. 28th. She was here. The doors opened onto a space that looked like it had been designed by people who'd never sweated over a rent check. White marble floors, glass walls, an art piece on the far end that probably cost more than her college tuition. She stepped out. Emma Carter? A receptionist asked, rising behind a sleek desk. Emma nodded. Her throat felt dry. Mr. Hawthorne is ready for you. That name alone was enough to make her stomach drop. Lucas Hawthorne, CEO of Hawthorne and Vale Industries. Ruthless, visionary. The kind of man who made stock prices dance with a sentence and could end careers with a look. She followed the receptionist down a hallway that smelled faintly of leather and lavender. Her footsteps were muffled by thick carpet. Her heart was not. Then, the door. The receptionist knocked once, opened it, and gestured her in. And there he was. Lucas Hawthorne sat behind a massive desk of blackened oak, a skyline view yawning behind him like a god's throne. He looked up, eyes sharp and unreadable. He didn't smile. "Miss Carter," he said, "have a seat." She sat, the door closed. Silence. The interview had begun. But neither of them knew that before it ended, Emma would say something that would turn his world, and hers, completely upside down. The leather chair beneath Emma felt too soft. She kept shifting, unsure whether to sit back or lean forward, her knees locked in a pose that screamed, "Hire me, please." She clutched her portfolio in her lap, but Lucas Hawthorne hadn't asked for it. He hadn't said anything at all. He was reading. Not a resume, not a dossier. But his eyes scanned her like he was calculating something far beyond her comprehension. Not cruel, just clinical. Finally, he spoke. "So, Emma Carter." His voice was smooth, controlled. It didn't ask questions. It demanded truth. "Yes," she said, blinking too hard. "Thank you for having me." "You graduated top 10% at a non-Ivy," he began, eyes on a tablet. "Majored in communications, interned twice, barista for 3 years. Last job, administrative assistant for a tech startup that folded. Why do you want to work here?" It was the most basic of interview questions. Emma had practiced it in the mirror, in the shower, whispering it on the subway. But her throat tightened. Why did she want to work here? Because I'm tired of choosing between rent and groceries. Because I need to prove to myself I'm not broken. Because I want to breathe again. But none of those were acceptable. Not in a room like this. So she smiled, the practiced kind. Because I admire the company's trajectory and its innovation in brand communication, I believe I could contribute meaningfully with my experience in organization and storytelling. Lucas didn't nod, didn't blink. He asked more questions. About performance under pressure, team dynamics, workplace boundaries. Emma answered all of them. Some well, some clumsily. But she tried. She showed up. She told the truth, at least the version of it that didn't bleed, but she could feel it. He wasn't impressed. Her hands began to sweat. She wanted this job. Not just for the paycheck, for the dignity, for the chance to feel like she wasn't losing at life. And she was losing him. His eyes flicked back to the screen in front of him. He made a small mark with a stylus. That mark felt like a verdict. "Is there anything else?" he said, without looking at her. "You'd like to add before we wrap this up?" Emma opened her mouth, but the script she'd practiced vanished. She swallowed, and then it just slipped out. "I know I don't look like someone who should be sitting in this chair." Lucas's head turned sharply toward her. Emma's breath caught. She hadn't meant to say that out loud. The words had come from the soft, bruised part of her soul that she tried so hard to keep hidden, the part that felt permanently out of place. But there it was, said. And silence followed. She rushed to fill it. "But I've spent the last few years trying to survive. Working, learning, watching people like you, and wondering if I'd ever get the chance to matter somewhere. I'm not polished. I don't have the perfect background. But I show up, and I care. And I don't stop trying, even when no one's watching. That's all I have to offer." Her voice cracked, just a little. Lucas said nothing, but he stared at her, differently this time, as if she'd just broken some invisible wall. Emma's cheeks flushed. She gathered her things. "I'm sorry," she said, standing abruptly. "That wasn't professional. Thank you for your time." She turned to leave. "Sit down." The command froze her mid-step. She turned slowly, unsure if she'd heard correctly. Lucas's expression had changed, just slightly. The icy mask had fractured. "Sit," he repeated, but softer. Emma sat. Lucas leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. "Say it again." She blinked. "What?" "What you said before. About not looking like you belong in that chair." She hesitated. I said I know I don't look like someone who should be sitting in this chair." Lucas stared at her for a long, long moment. Then he nodded. "I did once," he said, almost like a confession. 12 years ago, different city, same chair. And just like that, the temperature in the room changed. Emma's heart thudded. She didn't understand what had just happened, but she could feel it. Something had cracked open. The phrase that tumbled out of her, accidental, vulnerable, had landed somewhere she couldn't see, somewhere that mattered. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Emma sat frozen in her chair, feeling the edges of reality shift. The man across from her, Lucas Hawthorne, the unshakable executive giant, the man she had built up in her head as unreachable, had just admitted something unexpected. Something human. She stared at him, uncertain whether to speak again. Lucas looked at her, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. His eyes weren't cold anymore. They were searching. "What did you mean by it?" he asked finally. Emma swallowed. "That I'm not what you were expecting. I don't come from privilege. I don't wear the right brands. I've been invisible in most rooms like this one. People smile, but they never really see me. I thought, if I just worked hard enough, if I kept pushing, someone might give me a chance. But lately, I'm not even sure anyone's listening anymore." Her words tumbled out softly, one truth after another, as if the dam had broken. "I've lost a lot. My savings, my job, my confidence. I'm scared all the time. But I still came. I still showed up. I guess I just thought, maybe showing up still counts for something." Lucas didn't interrupt. He leaned back slightly, expression unreadable, but no longer distant. "I did something like that once," he said. "Sat in a room like this. Told a man I knew I didn't belong. He said I was right. I left, convinced I'd failed." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. 2 days later, he called me back, told me I was the only one who said something real. Emma blinked. Lucas continued, voice steady. "Everyone else tried to be perfect, polished, predictable. You didn't. You showed up as you are." She felt something shift in her chest, a lightness. Maybe even hope? "You said," Lucas added, "you don't stop trying even when no one's watching." "I meant it," she said. "It's the only thing I know how to do." He stood up. For a second, Emma thought the interview was over, that he'd dismiss her politely. She began reaching for her bag, but instead, he walked to the floor-to-ceiling window behind his desk and stared out at the skyline. "I didn't plan to hire anyone this week," he said quietly. "Frankly, I thought this role was redundant. HR insisted on opening it. I was going to go through the motions and close it without a hire." Emma's stomach dropped. Her fingers gripped the edge of the chair. "But now," he turned slowly to face her. "Now I'm reconsidering." Her breath hitched. Lucas studied her again, but the intensity had changed. Less judgment. More curiosity. "You're not what I expected," he said. "But I'm beginning to think that might be exactly what we need." He returned to his desk, tapped his tablet, then looked up. "This wasn't a formal offer. Yet. But I want to see you again. I want to know if this wasn't just a moment." Emma blinked. "You mean another interview?" "No," he said. "I mean a trial. 1 week. Shadow my executive team. Sit in meetings. Observe. Offer thoughts when you feel you have something to say. No pay yet. But if you're the real deal, you'll walk out of here with more than a job." Emma's chest rose and fell, uncertain if she should feel honored or skeptical. She had no safety net, no money, not even subway fare to come back tomorrow without borrowing. But there was something in his voice that wasn't condescending. It sounded almost like faith. She started, then stopped. "I'd need to figure some things out. I mean, transportation and—" Lucas interrupted her thoughts. "I'll have someone from HR coordinate logistics. You won't need to worry about travel or meals. I want you focused." Emma's heart pounded. 1 week, 1 chance. She nodded slowly. "Okay." Lucas didn't smile, but his voice softened. "Good." As he walked her to the door, Emma turned to him, unable to stop herself. "Why did it matter? That I said that sentence?" He paused. "Because in a world built on masks, honesty is rare, especially the kind that costs you something." He opened the door. And just like that, Emma Carter stepped back into the hallway. Same blazer, same resume, but a completely different person than the one who had ridden up 27 floors praying not to fall apart. The next morning, Emma stood in front of the towering glass building once again. Same city, same street. But something in her felt different. Not exactly confident, but steadier. Grounded. Her shoes pinched a little, The blazer still didn't fit perfectly, but she held her chin higher. At the security desk, she gave her name. "Welcome back, Ms. Carter," the guard said with a polite nod. "You're on the list." That sentence alone made her insides flutter. She took the elevator to the 28th floor again, but this time the ride felt less like a climb toward doom and more like a quiet ascent toward something uncertain but possible. HR met her with a warm smile, gave her a visitor badge, and led her to a sleek, glass-walled conference room with a view of the skyline. She was briefed quickly. Her role this week was observational. She'd shadow high-level meetings, meet department heads, and be expected to absorb as much as she could. Speak only if asked, unless she had something meaningful to say. Emma nodded. She could do that. She would do that. What followed was a whirlwind. She sat through marketing strategy sessions, investor briefings, product brainstorming meetings. She watched executives debate brand identity while sipping designer coffee. She watched junior employees quietly shrink into corners. And she watched Lucas Hawthorne, his precision, his sharpness, the way every room shifted the moment he entered. But something else began to unfold. Lucas would glance at her during meetings, sometimes unexpectedly, as if checking whether she caught something no one else did. And often, she had. By the third day, she was invited to lunch with 2 senior VPs. By the fourth, she was taking notes during a private strategy session, not just watching. She noticed things, patterns, gaps, questions others weren't asking. And on the 5th day, Lucas called her into his office. She stepped in, heart pounding. "You've been quiet," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "I was told to observe." He tilted his head. "And what did you observe?" Emma hesitated. "You want honest feedback?" "I wouldn't have asked otherwise." She took a breath. "Your product rollout team is fractured. 2 departments are working on the same deliverables and don't know it. The UX lead and the branding director are in disagreement over core design features, and it's stalling progress." Lucas didn't blink. "Continue." "The interns aren't just underutilized, they're demoralized. One of them left crying on Wednesday. And during the market research meeting, someone presented outdated data that skewed the projections." There was silence. Emma's stomach twisted. Maybe she'd said too much. But Lucas leaned back, arms folded. And then, he smiled. It wasn't wide or warm, but it was real. "You were supposed to observe," he said. "Not see through my company like glass." "I wasn't trying to embarrass anyone." "You didn't," he replied. "You noticed what I've known for weeks, but no one else had the nerve to say." He stood and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. "This place looks perfect from the outside, but perfection is a mask. And sometimes it takes someone who doesn't feel like they belong to see where the cracks really are." Emma didn't know what to say. Lucas turned. "That sentence you said on Monday, about not looking like you belong, I've thought about it every night since." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "Why?" "Because I built this company so people like me could finally belong somewhere. But along the way, I forgot to look for people like you." She felt her throat tighten. Lucas moved behind his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a simple envelope. "I'm making you an offer," he said, sliding it toward her. "This isn't charity. It's recognition. For your insight. For your courage. For showing up when it mattered." Emma stared at the envelope. She reached for it slowly, her fingers trembling. Her name was printed neatly on the front. "I don't," she began. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Lucas replied, "and then prove me right." She opened the envelope. Inside was a contract. Full-time, competitive salary, benefits, a real title, Strategic Communications Analyst. Emma looked up, eyes glassy. "Thank you," Lucas gave a nod. You earned it. As she left the office, offer in hand, 1,000 emotions surged through her. Relief, disbelief, joy. But most of all, pride. She had walked into this building thinking she was one sentence away from breaking. And it turned out, she was right. But that sentence hadn't broken her. It had built her future. Emma sat alone in Bryant Park, her new contract folded in her lap like something sacred. The city pulsed around her. Horns, footsteps, coffee carts, conversations in motion. But all she could hear was the echo of that moment in Lucas's office. This isn't charity, it's recognition. It still didn't feel real. A week ago, she had been spiraling, tired, broke, uncertain. She had walked into that building with the weight of every failure perched on her shoulders. And now she had an office ID badge in her purse, a job offer with health insurance, a salary that could change everything. Rent, groceries, dignity. But it wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about worth. That one sentence, I know I don't look like someone who should be sitting in this chair, had unearthed something in Lucas, and in herself. She hadn't meant to say it, but maybe that was what made it matter. Truth isn't polished, she thought. It's raw. It's brave. Her phone buzzed with a text. Lucas Hawthorne. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., your desk will be ready. Welcome to the real floor. The real floor. The top executives, the decision makers. It was overwhelming, but also thrilling. Emma took a slow breath and leaned back on the park bench, letting the sun warm her face. She remembered the nights she cried in silence, the humiliating interviews, the job applications that never led anywhere. She remembered the landlord's cold warnings and the way she'd pretended she was fine even when she wasn't. All of it led here. Back at her apartment that night, Emma called her mom for the first time in weeks. I got the job, she said. There was a pause. Then, her mother's voice cracked through the line. Emma, baby, I never doubted you. Emma smiled, tears blurring the city lights outside her window. I doubted me, so many times. You just needed someone to see you, her mother whispered. Someone had. The next morning, she arrived at the office earlier than necessary. The receptionist greeted her by name. A badge waited for her. So did a sleek glass-walled office space, small, but hers. She set down her bag and looked around. On her desk was a note. Emma, the floor is yours. Speak up. Shake things. Change something. L. She touched the paper gently. It wasn't flowery. It wasn't sentimental. But it was full of trust. And maybe that was the greatest gift of all. Throughout the week, she joined core meetings and began working closely with the communications team. They were wary at first, some even skeptical. But Emma didn't try to dazzle or outperform. She listened. She took notes. And when she finally did speak up, her thoughts were sharp, articulate, bold. She earned their respect, not overnight, but honestly. On Thursday, she ran into Lucas in the hallway. He was alone, jacket off, tie loosened. How's the new chair feel? He asked, a slight smirk playing at his lips. Emma smiled. Still adjusting to the view. Don't, he said. Make the view adjust to you. That night, Emma stood at her window overlooking the city. She watched the blur of taillights and lives and wondered how many other people were out there, just like she had been, smart, struggling, unseen. She made a silent promise to herself. If I ever have the chance to lift someone the way I was lifted, I won't hesitate. Because sometimes, all it takes is one raw moment. One truth, spoken aloud. One sentence that cracks open the silence, and everything changes. Monday morning arrived with golden light streaming through Emma's apartment window. She stood before the mirror, adjusting the new blazer she'd bought over the weekend. her first real purchase in months that hadn't made her stomach twist with guilt. It wasn't designer, but it was hers. And today, for the first time, she wasn't dressing to impress. She was dressing to belong. At the office, she was greeted with nods instead of second glances, smiles instead of suspicion. A week ago, she had been a visitor. Today, she was part of the team. The buzz of productivity filled the air as Emma entered her small office. A whiteboard stood beside her desk. Blank. Possibility, she thought. She liked that. Before she could settle in, Lucas knocked once and stepped in. "Got a minute?" "Of course," she said, standing instinctively. He waved her down. "Sit. I just came to tell you something before the chaos begins." Emma waited, still unsure how much familiarity was allowed with someone like him. Lucas leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "We're restructuring part of the communications team. I want you involved, not just observing this time. I want your voice at the table." Emma blinked. "Are you sure?" "I've rarely been more sure of anything," he said. "You see things people miss. You speak truth, even when it's uncomfortable. That's rare. I value that." She felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you." Lucas nodded, then added, "Also, about that sentence you said on your first day." Emma felt her stomach tighten, just slightly. "You know the one," he continued. "About not looking like someone who should be in that chair." She nodded. He looked at her, gaze steady. "I hope you know by now, that chair doesn't define you. You define the chair." She let the words sink in. He left, and she sat in silence for a moment. Not out of hesitation, out of reflection. Her phone buzzed with calendar invites, tasks, meetings. Her day was filling up, but her heart felt light. Weeks passed. Emma thrived. Slowly, steadily, she became a quiet force within the company. She didn't compete for attention. She earned it through insight, integrity, and empathy. She introduced ideas that improved workflows. She mentored interns who reminded her of herself. She found herself being invited into rooms she never dreamed of entering. And one Friday afternoon, as she wrapped up a project, an intern stopped by her door. "Emma?" She looked up. "Yes?" "I just wanted to say, I know I don't look like someone who should be working here," the girl said nervously, clutching a notebook. Emma smiled gently. "Neither did I," she replied, "until I realized that's exactly why I should be." The intern smiled, visibly exhaling. "Thanks. That helps more than you know." After the girl left, Emma sat back in her chair. It was still the same office, same view. But everything had changed. Not because of luck, not because of networking. Because one day, she showed up completely unguarded and told the truth. A truth that cracked the shell of indifference. That echoed in someone else's memory. That reached the one place corporate polish can't touch. The heart. She didn't just get a job. She rewrote the rules for what it meant to deserve a seat at the table. And it had all started with one trembling, accidental sentence. If you enjoyed the story, leave a rating from 0 to 10. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much.